And of course, we're working to learn so much more. We're standing by for a briefing, but we're just trying to make sense of some of that chaos and trying to compile information in this situation. So joining us is Lieutenant Scott Ramage with JSO, and he joined us today because he has a lot of perspective about these situations because a large part of your time has been training for active shooter situations. Tell us a little bit about your background before we kind of dive into dissecting what happened at FSU.
Correct. I've been fortunate enough to be on the Sheriff's Office for right at 21 years, and a lot of that time has been not only with the SWAT team, but also with our training academy, training in reference to active shooters, both our agency and members of our agency and members of the region as well.
And so you guys trained for this, and they were actually doing training. It just so happens right nearby, Tallahassee police were on this day. When the call comes out that there's an active shooter, walk us through the moments and what the response is from law enforcement, like the first thing you do, the priority, and kind of go from there.
Yes, so our first priority is really to respond to the scene as quickly as possible. Our officers are told that the first priority is to honestly stop the killing and stop the active threat. So they will respond as quickly as possible, deploying on the scene, whether it be an individual officer or a group of officers. From there, once the threat is then stopped, we work on stopping the dying. Is our next objective, applying medical aid to those individuals that have been injured in the incident, and then actually coordinating further on that with fire rescue and other emergency resources to not only provide aid there on scene, but actually get the individuals that have been injured out to the hospitals in coordination with that.
And we know obviously FSU is a large campus with tens of thousands of people. So talk about the response when you're dealing with that amount of people. And we know that there was a shelter in place ordered and they were going through trying to clear the campus. I mean, this started around 12:30 and they just noted that the campus was secure within the last, 30, 40 minutes. So when it's a situation or environment of that scale, how does that change the response?
Yeah, so any active shooter, it's going to be, it's a devastating incident for anyone that is involved in that. So we really want to control that incident as a whole, and any active shooter turns into a large-scale event. So we ask the individuals that are not involved in that to stay out of the area, individuals that are in the area to clearly identify themselves as victims, clearing out of the area upon the initial response of law enforcement officers. If individuals are leaving the area, to clearly keep their hands up and keep on moving past the area. That way responding officers can clearly identify what a potential threat might be.
Well, and that was the question I was going to ask you. You go in blind. You don't know how many shooters there are. You don't know who the shooter is. And I mean, we still don't have that information. We'll hopefully find it out at 4:30. But when you go into a situation that may have 1, 2, 3 shooters, how do you identify the threat? How do you prepare for something you really almost can't prepare for?
Well, through training and through the intelligence that's coming in at the scene. So and we look at previous active shooters and events across the nation to determine what our best response can be on that. So really looking at the intelligence that we have coming in from individuals that are on scene and responding to the stimulus that we have there on scene is the best option for officers to respond, and then eventually locking down and controlling those scenes after we've accomplished our objectives.
And we want to note we are standing by for a 4:30 briefing from Tallahassee, but so they've secured the campus, they've neutralized the threat, and they're telling people stay away from the student union in these particular buildings. It's closed. They're telling people don't come back to try to retrieve personal belongings. What happens now as they move into this investigative phase?
Yeah, so it will be, and I'm not sure of this specific situation, but it will be a long investigation. Not only do they then have to lock that area down, then they have to clear that area, making sure there are no additional threats in that area, making sure there are no additional victims that went and tried to hide in those areas for their safety, try to then evac them to medical resources if there are. But then the investigative phase takes over. And obviously for the victims that have been involved in it, how devastating that is, they want to make sure that they do the proper investigation in reference to that.
What would you say the biggest difference is in responding to shootings like this as opposed to something, that may have 1 or 2 people involved? I mean, I know there's mass numbers, but the way you respond is just so different.
Yeah, so anytime, it's unfortunate that anytime that there's a shooting involving anybody, but it's really the totality of the circumstances, the phrase that we use, and what that circumstance is, with the location of where that shooting is, and really dictates our response and how we as officers respond to that incident.
I know that there on the campus, they had a class training people for active shooter situations, including the run, hide, fight. We were hearing from students, some of them who did barricade themselves, who did hide. Some of them ran to their cars because they thought that was the best thing to do. How important is having that training? Because we know FSU had a shooting as well back in 2014 and improved some different things and updated protocol. But how important is that training, even like the training that was happening there today?
Yeah, so it's very important. It's important that individuals, both on the corporate level as well as individuals with their families, tell people to have a plan in place, whether it be the FBI puts out a run, hide, fight, or alert, which is a national training for active shooters for law enforcement, puts out avoid, deny, defend, but to have that plan in place, basically to make sure that if they can be out of the area, whether it's running away from the area, avoid the area altogether, that is critical. From there, if they can't avoid that area or run away, that they deny access, they barricade doors, they lock doors, and then finally, if it comes down to it where a shooter is coming into the room that they are in, that they do everything they can to fight that individual to make sure he can be stopped.
Well, and I'll read you the press release that Tallahassee Police put out yesterday. They were doing tactical apprehension and control team, or their tactical apprehension and control team were conducting training exercises nearby, and they said, you may hear loud bangs, crashes, sirens, and see officers with firearms. What is that training, and how? I mean, I imagine it's really lucky they were right there.
I'm not sure what their specific training was in reference to that. I know that tactical teams across the nation conduct training all the time in order to prepare for incidents like this. So I can't speak on their specific training, but I know that both SWAT teams across the nation, as well as police departments, not only our specialty teams, but also police as a whole have trained this for years and years. So the Sheriff's Office has trained really since the Columbine incident for incidents like this, and we've been training for over a decade in terms on a regional aspect, even with our fire rescue department, for incidents such as these.
I want to ask you about, we've been talking a lot about just the emotional toll that this takes. So you have the healthcare workers who receive some of these victims. You have the law enforcement who go into these scenes. Is that a part of those conversations when you're looking at responding to threats like this, the emotional and mental health aspect of it for you all and for all the first responders?
The aftermath, definitely. They try to take care of both the first responders and people that are on scene. And in reference to providing aid for them, chaplains, counselors, people that can talk to individuals once the initial scene is under control.
Mm-hmm. As you guys, and what we've seen with this today is information comes in real time, and maybe it's right, maybe it's not. There's so much going on in such a short amount of time, in such a high stress environment. How do you guys keep it straight to figure out, oh, this is where we need to go, or this is the shooter, and not just end up like running in various different directions?
So it is responsible, and we conduct training in reference to managing an active shooter, but that is a critical component of it, and that we have to make sure that we are controlling which officers are going where, what areas have been cleared and locked down, and what victims. And we've worked closely. I think the Sheriff's Office has done a very good job on that, working closely with our fire rescue department and really combining on those resources to, if there are incidents like those that happen here in Jacksonville, that we can efficiently take care of that incident.
Okay, Lieutenant Scott Ramage, we appreciate you for standing by. We are going to go to break, and when we come back, we're expecting to hear from officials there in Tallahassee. We hope that you will stay with us as we break down what the information that we get, and maybe offer us some perspective. We appreciate you, and we will be back in just a moment.